will be ranking every Assassin's Creed game in the mainline series from AC1 to Mirage as a tier list, from S to F. It's gonna be controversial, it just always is. This is the Assassin's Creed community after all. Being such a divided community, what can you expect? And that's fine. So, let's just start with AC1. Now, in my opinion, Assassin's Creed 1 is S tier, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people don't say it is because they say, oh, it's repetitive gameplay, doesn't hold up today graphically, But when you really understand the message Assassin's Creed 1 was portraying about the world, it was an art statement rather than just a game like maybe the newer ones are. It was literally there to spread a message, to make you as the player think and feel emotion. That's what it was made to do. Something, in my opinion, the newer games lack. The newer games are there to sell a product. That's what businesses do. Okay, fair enough. But Assassin's Creed 1 was there to do that, but also to make you think. And I love that about Assassin's Creed 1. In my opinion, the gameplay does hold up. I think graphically, yeah, it doesn't look as good as newer games, but I really do think graphics have held up in a weird sort of way. If you look at the environments in Assassin's Creed 1, you can see here clearly that it does hold up. It looks nice. Altair is a great protagonist. He has pure character development. He goes from an arrogant pace of, I'm not going to say that word because usually don't like that word, but you know what I'm saying. He goes from that and he slowly but surely builds up this humble exterior and interior of a character as he understands the world around him more. Its theme is based on, illusion, what is reality. And you could say his character reflects that. As he understands more, he becomes wiser, and that shows in his character. And you also feel that as a player. You feel a true connection to Altair and Desmond when you're playing AC1 because you're unraveling these mysteries along with the character. Think back to 2007 when its effective narrative had the biggest effect because we didn't know what was going to come in the series. We didn't even know if there was going to be another game. We didn't know who the Isu were. We didn't know what these weird artifacts were. We just knew they were something. They were strange. And as we assassinated our targets, we learned more about this underground war. It wasn't really underground at the time, actually. It was very much out in the open. But we understood and learned more about the Templars versus the Assassins and why they were really fighting the fight they did. Those themes the game's tackled and the way the Assassins versus the Templars were approached, I don't think we've got that since Assassin's Creed 1. AC2, Brotherhood, Revelations, and 3 really do a good job of telling an Assassin's fantasy story, but I just don't think they went in on that philosophical detail that the first game did. And as well as that, we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for Assassin's Creed 1 when it comes to the series. That's why it's S tier. Moving on, AC2 is S. AC2 is also S because, well, for me personally, I've completed it about 15 times, I think, literally no joke. It was the first game when I was younger that I really played and completed in the AC series. I played AC1 when I was young, but I just messed around, ran around the cities and stuff. It took everything great when it comes to gameplay about AC1, and it just improved on that. It was like AC1 2.0, more varied in gameplay. The worlds were richer and bigger. There was more to do in side content. The main story took what AC1 did, and yeah, as I said, maybe it didn't approach it with as much nuance, but what it did do is it expanded on those stories. It made you understand more, and it kept that sort of cliffhanger, more questions asked than answered narrative progression as it went on. And again, it was just a spiritual successor as well as a real successor to AC1 in so many ways. It's a classic. AC Brotherhood, am I just going to put these all in S? Because AC Brotherhood's also S to me. I'm just going to be honest right now. AC Brotherhood, again, just did what AC2 did and did it better. I feel like AC Brotherhood was also AC 2.0 as well in a way. And what I mean by that is it took graphics, it took story, and it carried on the story, but it took graphics, it took gameplay, and it just refined them. It just polished them and made them much better. To do that in such a short amount of time as well was a real accomplishment, because Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, if I'm not mistaken, had just under about 11 months of development time, you know, proper development time. And to do everything they did in that amount of time, I would say is unprecedented. They added renovations. They had them in AC2, but they added them in a much more streamlined way. They had them throughout the entire city. You can now renovate structures, and the more you did that, the more income you would get. Again, they did that in AC2, but this time it really fleshed it out. I feel like, in my personal opinion, Brotherhood was better written. AC2 was really well written, but I feel like Brotherhood was just like a level above. I personally preferred Ezio's character a lot more in Brotherhood than I did in AC2. There's more of a relatability to him. I'm not calling myself a humble wise man. I'm just saying I appreciate his character more when he's older. AC Revelations is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's my favorite AC game of all time. Now, I know there's big debate about AC Brotherhood or AC Revelations being the best AC game. I get that. But we're talking about tiers here. Revelations is S tier. The soundtrack is one of the most beautiful soundtracks I've ever heard. Also, it's one of the most beautifully written games ever made. It tied in the first game with that game and the whole Ezio trilogy so well. It also tied in Desmond's arc with all of those characters so well. And it answered the questions we'd been dying to know for the past 3 games. And it did that so well, while also leaving more questions than answers. It was perfect, in my opinion. And I know some of the gameplay may have been better refined in AC Brotherhood. Some people don't like the slow motion air assassinations, and when you kill an enemy, it goes slow motion. I get that. Some things could have been done better, but I think AC Revelations is just the perfect Assassin's Creed story. AC1 is also that, but this was done in a more, I feel like, cinematic way. Not always the best approach, but I think with this game it was. And it really drove home that emotional impacts that a story across literal generations had. Altair, then Ezio, and then Desmond. And that moment when Ezio went, Desmond, I know you're there. Oh my god, bro. Every time. When I say it tears me up, I'm being serious. Massive nerd. Yeah, I'm being serious. It really does. And no Assassin's Creed game makes me feel the way Assassin's Creed Revelations does. It just doesn't. So it's S tier for me. Assassin's Creed 3. This is a hard one, you know, because if this was like a year ago, I would have put it like B, but I'm thinking I might put it back A right now. Now that's a controversial take for some. I'll tell you why I've put it at A. Now, the reason I've put it at A is because I've been replaying it recently for a video that's coming, I don't even know when, sometime this year, and I'm loving it. Now, I don't know if that's because coming off the back burner of AC Mirage, a game I really didn't like, I don't know whether that sort of makes me appreciate AC3 more for what it is, because they do understand Assassin's Creed. They understand why they fight the fight they fight. In my opinion, Mirage didn't understand, or if it did understand the fundamentals of it, it didn't really touch upon those in the ways that it should have. AC3 doesn't skim over anything. AC3 really goes in on philosophical debates on the Creed, on the Templars, on the ones who came before, and should you possess this power? Should you have this power to control the masses, or should you allow them to be free? Its main theme was freedom, and it was done very well. Now, gameplay, I think, can be a bit tedious in AC3. This is something a lot of the AC games suffer from going forwards. From AC3, really. A lot of the camps you enter to eavesdrop, interrogate, it can get boring. It can. And I think some of them weren't really that well designed. However, I just do feel like the story does make up for that. I just really like free thinking and pondering, and that's just something this game does with, you know, Haytham and Connor having their debates in emotion during the middles of fights, and it's just, I love that. I love that. That's why I love the game series, is because of these themes that it tackles. And obviously freedom has always been a big part of AC, but they approached freedom in a sort of different light with AC3, and having the whole, you know, frontiers of America, the new land, the new world being the backdrop. Yeah, it might not have been the best idea for an AC game when it comes to gameplay, but I think when it comes to narrative, it really ties in that whole freedom aspect, because, you know, land of the free, all that stuff, it does that. I just love that game. I just love that game. Is what it is. Black Flag, this is going to be probably my most controversial take right now. For me, it's a C. I know. I get it. Why is it not S? Black Flag is S tier. I get it. But for me, it's C. Mainly due to naval combat. For me, I never really got on with the naval combat. So I did enjoy Origins naval combat, which we'll get onto later. But for Black Flag, I hated that it forced you into a lot of sequences within the game where you had to fight with your ships. I just didn't enjoy it. I really liked exploring the seas, chilling out, listening to what we're gonna do with those drunken sailors, and all that. So I enjoyed that. Bully in the alley, man. Yeah, I enjoyed that. When there was assassination missions where I had to fight an enemy on a ship, and I keep dying, and I wouldn't have the resource to upgrade my ship. And yeah, I should have been better at the game. I get that, but I didn't like to be forced and pigeonholed into a gameplay mechanic that I frankly wasn't used to, and it just wasn't for me. So for that reason, I have to put it as C, because I really did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the stuff on land, and again, it's just peacefully exploring on ship. I enjoyed that. It was just too much naval combat that I just couldn't get on with, and it did turn me off from the game. It's really well written. It's actually very similar to AC1 in similar ways. Like, you start as an arrogant, brutish man, and you end up becoming wise. You understand what's truly important, and you become better for it. And that's something, yeah, that's a reflection between Altair and Edward. I loved Edward's character. He's one of the best AC protagonists. And that's why it's C for me. That's why it's in the middle, because there's so much I love about the game, so much I just can't love as well. Same for Rogue. It's not going to go C. For me, Rogue is... I'm not going to lie to you. Rogue is F, bro. I'm just going to be $150 right now, bro. AC Rogue is F. Reason being, same reason when it comes to naval combat. It's just there was even more of it in that, I think, and it was just also bombarded in your face, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to touch it. I just wanted my classic AC story, and I didn't like that. Now, when it comes to narrative, the idea of reversing it, flipping the switch, playing as a Templar fighting the assassins, that's a great premise. But I feel like it just felt like another AC game. It felt like I was just playing as an assassin, assassinating Templars, because they made us a Templar, they made us fight the assassins, but it didn't do enough with the story, in my opinion. It didn't reflect the ideology of the Templars enough. In Shay, I don't think. Realistic, what it was is, Shay fundamentally disagrees with the assassins because now the assassins are bad. And that's cool, because I like that exploration, because it's like, maybe the assassins aren't the good guys, and that was very much themes from going from AC1, you know, blurring the lines between good and evil. But I feel like they could have done it in a more nuanced manner, and what they did was, they just thought, okay, assassins are now bad guys, they just do bad things. And now this Shay guy is actually a good guy, and he converts because he doesn't agree. Okay, but I feel like there should have been more nuance to that. There should have been more reason to why they did that. Look at KOTOR 2. It's a completely different type of game, but look at the way in KOTOR 2 they focus on the Jedi being potentially bad. People hate the Jedi in this era of the galaxy, and they hate the Jedi because the Jedi literally sent people to their death in a war that, quite frankly, could it have been beaten? You know, it was this. I'm not going to go into that, it's a different series, but there was reason to why they did it. They did it because they weren't trying to be bad. There was true reason to why they did it. It was the lesser of two evils in their opinion, but to others, it was the greater of two evils. You could say that's very similar for Rogue. They did it because they didn't want, you know, to risk da-da-da-da. It comes down to writing at the end of the day. I just think it could have been written, it should have been written, again, with more nuance. All right, moving on, we got Unity. I love Unity. It's not. I understand its flaws. I do. But for me personally, I've got a soft spot for this game. That being said, I'm going to put it in B. Reason I put it in B is because it did a lot good, it did a lot bad. Realistically, if I was going to be completely unbiased, I'd put it in probably D or E. But because I have a soft spot for this game, it goes in B. Parkour, we'll just start there, because that's probably AC Unity's main talking point at this point of time. Parkour in AC Unity, alright, yeah, it looks good, but it doesn't play good. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. It's janky. You have no control over where you want to go. You know, you can back eject, kind of, and it can look cool if you've got two narrow buildings and you're kind of ninja jumping out. I get that. But in the Ezio games, I was used to precisely being able to back or side eject where I want to go, having these Assassin Tomb missions where it's all about traversing the environment. You couldn't do that in Unity. They tried it. At the end of the Nostradamus Enigma riddles, you could then do a climbing puzzle to get to the black Altair's armor. It wasn't Altair's armor, but you know. And it was so clunky. I failed it so many times, not because I was bad at the gameplay, but because the system wasn't designed to be able to intricately climb where you want to go. Again, it looked good and it felt satisfying to glide from rooftop to rooftop, blah, 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 blah. It just played bad. And going back and playing it now, again, you clip onto walls, you run up hay carts. It's so clunky. And my dad was playing for the first time some point last year, and I was watching him play it, and he's not bad at games at all, but he just could not get on with the climbing. He was so bad at it. And it's like, so am I. And so is everyone, really, except from, you get classics like Slider V2, Altair Stealth, etc., who make it look really good, and that is skill. I just think for the casual player, it was just, they tried to do a great system, but they just didn't execute it well. And I think, like I said earlier, if you want to refine that system, make it better, it could be something great, but I think it just wasn't. When it comes to story, it was an Assassin's Creed story at the end of the day, which I really enjoyed. Did it focus on its themes, and was it as well written as some of the older games? No, not at all. I don't think it had much of an emotional impact like the older games did have, which automatically is going to put it at a lower tier for me. But it's very nostalgic for me. I was 13 when I was playing AC Unity. I remember going into music class and my mate came up to me and he was like, "I don't like Unity." And I was like, "Bro, you love Assassin's Creed." And he was like, "Yeah, but it's just not very good, is it?" And I thought, what? It's great. Anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, AC Unity, it did things well. Like, combat was really good. I think combat could be reapproached for newer AC games, I think. I think it had a good thing going for it. But again, it just didn't have that level of refinement because it didn't have as long in the oven as it should have had, development time. And that was to the game's detriment, clearly, because it's not S or A, it's B. But if I wasn't biased, it would be probably lower down the D, E's, and F's. Moving on to Syndicate, F, bro. I don't even have to think about that shit. I hate Syndicate. Now, I know a lot of you guys love that game. The open world is beautiful. Every Assassin's Creed game open world is beautiful. They're so good at crafting open worlds, visually. But for me, oh my god, it spat in the face of every Assassin's Creed game before it, pretty much. What was the writer thinking? What was the writer thinking, bro? It doesn't have to be funny. It just doesn't. And you can add jokes in there, here and there. Even if they're corny, you can add them here and there. But it's got to be done tastefully. It's got to be done as and when it feels right. It can't be having funny assassin jokes, assassin Christmas, all of this interspersed between, every paragraph of dialogue. It's too much. Especially seeing that it wasn't funny, and it just became a bore. You go from Assassin's Creed 1 being this nuanced, real in-depth look at society and the world and reality around us to, what's this, Granny? Assassin Christmas. It's just like, bro, what are you doing? You clearly don't understand the series you're writing for, and for that reason it's F. I also feel like, alright, I'll give it a few props. I love the black box mission more. The black box missions in AC Syndicate, I think, were the best in the series. The leaning around walls was done the best. Throwing knives was implemented really well. And just the overall structure, sneaking into a building to find your target. Unique assassinations. They were done so well. But the writing for that game lets it down so much. As well as that, the grappling hook is a terrible idea for an Assassin's Creed game. Do you love the grappling hook? Fair enough, I respect that. But for me, Assassin's Creed shouldn't have grappling hooks, because one of the biggest focuses of Assassin's Creed... Well, let me ask you, when you ask somebody, when you think about Assassin's Creed, what comes to mind? Hoods, hidden blades, history, climbing, jumping into the hay, parkour. That's one of its main gameplay features, and you eliminate that when you add a grappling hook. When you have a grappling hook, you no longer ever need to climb, or you need to barely do it. So what's the point of adding a grappling hook? Well, firstly, it's a new gimmick to get you by in the next game, because there's a new feature that looks cool. There's that. They took inspiration from the Arkham games, clearly, with combat as well, which is god-awful, button-mashing mess. But the grappling hook was also created because the buildings in London are so far apart that you can't jump from one building to the other. It's impossible. The roads are so wide. And that's just the way London is. So maybe the setting wasn't the right setting for an Assassin's Creed game. I'm just saying. Maybe it wasn't. Because you had to add a new feature just for the fact that you wouldn't be able to do satisfying parkour otherwise. But then you get rid of parkour, and you see what I'm saying. So that's why it's F. I just don't like AC Syndicate. I really don't. AC Origins, I almost put it in S. It's between S or A. Ooh. It goes A. I'll tell you why it goes A. It's a true origin story to Assassin's Creed. Clues in the title. It's so well written. The characters are just... it's the chef's kiss of Assassin's Creed. Just as much as AC1 to Revelations is, in my opinion. I have no complaints about the narrative. It's just beautifully made. Okay, I do have a complaint about the narrative. Layla Hassan, the modern day, that was executed pretty badly. I mean, the setup with the modern day with Layla Hassan being a new character was interesting. It was then ruined by Odyssey, which we'll get into. But yeah, I just still feel like, in retrospect, the modern day of those 3 games from Origins to Valhalla was just down bad. So that does take me away from the Origins experience, why it's maybe not S. It's no Desmond Miles as a character, and it's no Desmond Miles story arc that he had. So for that reason, Origins is not S, it's A. But gameplay was new at the time, new and refreshing. We had the same format for years. It was getting stale, so they revamp it, and it was pretty good, to be fair. You know, it was a soft core sort of RPG. It wasn't really an RPG because it was still very action adventure focused, but you had more RPG elements. The world was designed in a completely different way. We went back to the ancient times, further back than we'd ever been, and we explored the origins of the Creed, which was, again, something we'd been wondering about since the first game. So to explore that and for it to be executed in narrative so well makes it such a great game. The DLCs, I haven't actually played all of the DLCs. I think there's 2 main ones, so I can't really speak on that. But the world was beautiful. The side content was interesting. There was actual good side stories, something the games after it wouldn't really have. Fleshed out side stories that were fun to approach. Leveling could have used some work. I didn't quite appreciate how level gated a lot of the main quests were, but nonetheless, I love AC Origins, and it's A. Odyssey is F. I don't even have to think about that either. The whole argument that it's great as a game but bad as an AC game is just null and void to me. There's no good reason for Assassin's Creed Odyssey other than the fact that they knew ancient Greece would be a big seller for them. There's no need to do this story. We've had the origin story, so there's no need to go further back, because we've had the origin story. Otherwise, do you want to call it Origins 2? You know what I mean? No, it's Odyssey. It shouldn't have been an Assassin's Creed game. It should have been called Odyssey, and it should have been about Spartan, and that's what it should have been. But calling it Assassin's Creed Odyssey brings in the money and success associated with the IP. It's just the way it goes. It was a business move. Open world looks amazing. Content within the open world, it's empty, it's bland, it gets boring. You can go from one side of the map in a straight line to the other and see not much. What I found myself doing when playing the game all throughout, I'd go from one main quest to the other. Yeah, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But it would be about 3,000 whatever kilometers away, or miles, whatever you want to call it. So far away. I'd run on my horse in a direct straight line because there was nothing to distract me, no interesting side content. Oh, there's a bandit camp. Yeah, I won't bother with it though because I know what it's going to be. I'm just going to kill a few enemies. I'm going to get some loot, which I don't care about, and I'm going to move on. I've done about 20 of those in the last 5 hours. I can't be bothered to anymore. So I'll go in a straight line. I'll keep going on my horse. I'll get to the ocean. I think you could call your ship. I can't remember. I get on my ship. I sail in a straight line. And I'd get to my destination about 10 minutes later, and I'd carry on. And then the next main quest would be boring. And then I'd be like, okay, and I keep going. It would be a rinse and repeat until the game was done. And that's why I didn't like Odyssey, sorry. And I can't be bothered to talk about that game anymore, to be honest. Valhalla is D. Now, for me, again, Valhalla suffered from a lot of the same that Odyssey suffered for. It wasn't as egregious, but it was still very much there. A massive open world with very little to do in, and what was there had no real substance. And it was a very convoluted story that didn't need to be that way. If you condense Valhalla down to a 20, maybe 30-hour story experience, then I think it would have actually been pretty good. If you didn't make England this huge empty open world, made it a little bit smaller, maybe regions similar to the older games that you could travel back and forth from, and it was more condensed, I reckon I'd have it up here. Or maybe here. Thing is, I don't. It's on D. There are great Assassin's Creed elements in the narrative. Darby wrote it, he knows what he's doing, but he didn't get the liberties to take what he wanted to do with the story. He just didn't. You can tell, it's evident, because he had to bloat the game out. They had to bloat the game out to get it to 100 hours, so that game time and play time is hours and hours and hours and hours. The investors are happy, they get more money, they sell more microtransactions. It's a rinse and repeat of that same process. If Darby could have written a 20 to 30 hour story, prime AC, bro. Prime AC. Yeah, okay, Eivor doesn't become an assassin, but maybe they don't always have to become an assassin. Maybe if you experience a story of someone who interacts with the assassins a lot and debates reality and freedom, an illusion and an underground war and all this and that. You know, if you can do that, maybe you don't have to become an assassin. But the thing is, with Valhalla, it did do that stuff here and there, but it was so few and far between, and you always had to hunt it out. Whereas in an Assassin's Creed game focused on these fundamental narrative beats, you shouldn't have to go look for them or have them interspersed between stuff that was nothing to do with that. Then what are you doing? And it was too much. It was too much with too little substance. That was Valhalla. Mirage, God, you guys know how I feel about Mirage, man. I'm gonna give Mirage a slight pass and give it an E. Yeah, I know, you're expecting me to say give it a B. No, I'm giving it an E. Now, Return to Roots. Return to Roots. I heard it over and over again, and I really started to believe it was going to be a Return to Roots. I have so many videos speculating on how good Mirage is going to be. Equally, just as many videos speculating how bad it could be. What it ended up being was a game that does have assassins. You are an assassin. You use a hidden blade. You wear a hood. But it didn't go in detail or in depth on any of what made Assassin's Creed Assassin's Creed. They had a few debates on freedom. Okay, I enjoyed that. They had a few debates on freedom that then intertwined with identity and what it means to be you. I liked that. I could probably pick out maybe 2 cutscenes through the whole game that did that, where in the rest of the game, it would almost touch upon these aspects. It would say, you know, like, I'm paraphrasing and just going off the top of my head, but this is sort of the vibe I got. You know, who is it to be me? And freedom is to be chosen, not to be joined with a cult. And I go, oh my god, this is going to be something great. And then they go, eh. And then they'd move on. And I'd be like, but we skimmed over it. We didn't get into the meat of it. We didn't get to... I have so many questions, and why aren't you helping me answer these? Or, just look at AC1 that had these in-depth looks at the core narrative themes. AC Mirage had themes, but it never even touched upon its own themes. It disregarded its own themes and pushed them aside for a borderline shoddy written narrative that doesn't do Basim any justice. He was so well written in Valhalla, and in Mirage, he's so badly written. I'm so sorry, I don't like to offend people, and I feel so mean saying this because I'm sure a lovely lady wrote this game. But it's just not on the level of quality that a mainline Assassin's Creed game needs to be. Okay, it was originally going to be a DLC, okay, but that was going to be a DLC for a mainline game. So it still needs to maintain that standard, which Mirage didn't do. If you haven't played the series in years and then you play Mirage, you might be mistaken in thinking it is a classic AC game. But I implore you to go back and look at games like AC1, AC2, Brotherhood, Revelations, even 3, even Origins for that matter, and you'll see the huge difference in a story that focuses on themes and carries them throughout and lets their characters in the game develop through those themes and let the worlds build through those themes, to Mirage, something that should be doing that, but the theme sits there and gets pushed to the back, gets put in a lockbox, closed, forgotten about, and then it just bumbles through a baseline, borderline, boring story. It wasn't even borderline, it is just a boring story that doesn't really do anything right up until the end, and it's just, I'm never playing that game again. I had to painstakingly do an hour-long video critique on that game, which I really enjoyed making, don't get me wrong, and I wanted to do it, but by the end of that, I'm like, I'm done with Mirage. I can't even look at that game anymore. And there we have it. That's my tier list. So, the goats at the top, a goat, another goat, a sheep, because it's like nearly a goat, but it's not a goat. Very controversial. Probably not as controversial. Mirage, probably quite controversial. Very controversial. The whole thing's controversial. But there you go. There's my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you enjoyed this video, press a like and a subscribe button to let me know you want to see more just like this, and to see some in-depth looks at great Assassin's Creed games on my channel. With that said, we're going to get back into podcasting mode now because we are doing a long podcast.